In Hollywood. I know it's in a seedy area, but they give the best manicure pedicures. Okay, anyway, I had gotten there and it was dark and there were 6 nail ladies and 2 customers. And I was sitting there and I had just gotten my favorite part, the hand and foot massage. And I was sitting there relaxing, waiting for a red Corvette nail polish to dry. And then I heard the door chimes go off. And when I opened my eyes, there was a completely wild-eyed freak standing in the middle of the salon. He goes, "Who's got money for me? Come on, you fucking bitches, give the shit up!" Now Yvonne, who runs the joint, chirps, "There's nothing for you here, please go!" Detecting the fear in her voice, the man comes all the way in the store, he gets in the other customer's face, and he goes, "Give me your fucking money, bitch." That's when it happened. "Sir, I'm an off-duty police officer. The last thing I want in my R&R is trouble." Now, the lady told you nicely there's nothing for you here, so what I suggested, you back your ass up and you get out that door. We were just staring at each other. Move it! Oh my gosh, he left. I couldn't believe it. I had to catch my breath, and the nail ladies are cheering. "Thank you, Leigh, thank you. We have no idea you're police officer." Yeah. I'm not. I don't even know how to tell you exactly what happens, but when things are out of order or they're chaotic, I become a cop. March 14th, 1966, Yuma, Arizona. I was in the hospital. My mother was just polishing off a 5th of vodka. And just after she took her last swallow, but just before she passed out, she gave birth to a beautiful 6-pound, 6-ounce baby girl, Leigh Kathleen. That's me. "Mrs. Morgan, here's your daughter." "Mrs. Morgan?" "Janice." "Take this one to the nursery." You know, I know giving birth is hard to watch, and a lot of people don't want to be in the delivery room. And I was hoping that's why my mother was drunk that day. But what I came to find out was she wasn't going to be there for most of my life. When I was a little girl, I thought I was from a Brady Bunch family because they had 6 kids, and we did. They were all kind of cute and close together in age, and so were we. Now, they had a father that was an architect, and we had a father that was a surgeon. They had a mother that was a homemaker, and we had a mother that laid in bed all day applying cold cream and eating fudge. They had Alice and we had Mrs. Wiley. Mrs. Wiley would cook our meals, clean our house, do our laundry, and everybody would ask me, "Why do you guys have Mrs. Wiley? You're not that loaded." And not a lot of people had maids in the 70s in Kansas. We had her for 2 reasons. One was because my father was a plastic and reconstructive surgeon, and he spent about 14 hours a day at the hospital. And the other reason was my mother. Oh, she was once a beauty queen at the University of Oklahoma. She was pinned 3 times and engaged twice before she met my father. Then she met my father. She had 6 kids that she completely ignored, and when she didn't want to talk to me or she was nervous, she'd fake whistle. Let me back up a little bit. My mother spent my entire life in bed. Now, it wasn't because she had a debilitating disease or she was missing any limbs. It was by choice. She was a recovered alcoholic. Well, she was an alcoholic, and she quit drinking after she gave birth to her last child. But back then in rehab, they gave you Valium to get off the booze, and she got addicted to that. And she picked a couple other drugs up along the way, like Lortab and Xanax. She spends probably 22 hours a day in bed. Now, there were times in my life that my mother would rally. When she got excited or she thought she'd have fun and it was exciting, she would just pop up. Like when I was a cheerleader in 8th grade. I was going to cheerleading camp and we didn't have a sponsor. My mother said, I'll be your sponsor, and she came. Oh my gosh, you guys, she had a heyday. She got to teach us all the cheers she did when she was in high school and college. And they had a little different style back then. And you also need to know that my mother's face is about 100 times more animated than the average human being. Here's one she taught us. You gotta go, team, go, team, you gotta go, team, you gotta go, fight with. My mother didn't stay our sponsor for long because she didn't want the actual bump and grind of having to go to the games every week. That's why we had Mrs. Wiley. Mrs. Wiley once told me she saw my little sister Catherine standing on a chair putting water into her cereal because she couldn't reach the milk in the refrigerator. There was no one around to help her. Well, there were actually 6 of us kids. I was in the middle, but we were all just doing what we had to do to survive and to get by. Now, people would ask me questions, like my kindergarten teacher when I would walk home from school every day would say, Leigh, where's your mother? I'd say, oh, she has a really important job downtown in a really tall building doing something big. Or on Tuesdays after practice, Missy Carrico would say, why doesn't your mother ever pick us up? My mother always drives. Or when people would spend the night, they'd go, why doesn't your mother ever come out of her bedroom? And I'd say, oh, she has a really bad strain of the flu. And if I'd already used that with that person, I'd say, oh, she has a huge walk-in closet, and it's a never-ending project. I can't get her out of there. Now, I thought this was normal growing up. I thought your father went to work, and your mother laid in bed. The first time that order was applied to my life was in kindergarten. Yancey Whitworth was the principal of my elementary school, John Dealer. Yancey Whitworth made the rule that Missy Carrico and I could never be in the same grade again all the way through to the 6th. Because we were so bad. Now, how bad could a kindergartner be? I asked my mom. Hey, Mom, what was up with the whole Missy Carrico That was you? I don't know. Well, as a matter of fact, Leigh, I never even wanted kids. I woke up one day and there were 6 of you around my bed and I thought, oh, what have I done? In 2nd grade, my teacher, Mrs. Southall, pulled home and told on me. Jim is Peg Southall. We're having a little problem with Leigh, and we're wondering if maybe you could talk to her. Well, we think she's boy crazy. She holds hands with Matt Dehan during reading circle. And on the playground, she pushes down Alex Calder and Jeff Mahajer and kisses them. And during free time, she watches Scott Ross play with his penis. Who didn't? When I got home from school that day, my mom called me to her bedroom, and I was like, right on, what? Mrs. Southall called home today and said you were boy crazy. A 2nd grader boy crazy? Now is that ridiculous? In 3rd grade, I started beating up boys. I'd fight for my friends, my little sister Catherine, but mostly I'd fight for me. If somebody said something I didn't like or was mean to me, I'd beat him up. Like David Bishop and Greg Hyde, there were 2 guys in my school, and they were really smart and hung out together, and in the halls and on the playground, they'd say stuff to me and laugh. And in class, when I'd answer a question wrong, they would hysterically fake laugh at me silently after they got my attention like this. I went up to him on the playground and said, you guys knock it off or I'm going to beat you up. He started laughing. And I didn't understand that because it was serious. After school, I grabbed Tanya Walker. She was a total tough ass, and I knew I wouldn't need her, but it's always good to have backup in case. We hauled ass on the route home, and we hid behind this huge bush that had berries on it. Somebody once told me they were poisonous, so I made sure not to touch them. I just waited. And there they were, David Bishop and Greg High. And I got up and I ran as hard as I could, and I nailed David Bishop in the stomach. He flew backwards, dropped his books. I got on him, and I patted him, and I patted, and I patted him. Greg Hyde's running away from me. And I went over and I got him, and I threw him down, patted him, and I patted him, and I patted him. When I got home from school that day, my dad was there. Now this was weird because my dad, I never saw him till bedtime. He was standing in the den, which we called the red room because everything was red. And he said, Leigh, what happened? And I told him, I got in a fight with David Bishop and Greg Hyde. And he was mad. He was mad because I fought and because I had a fat lip and a ripped shirt. And he called my brothers in Mike and Pat. Now you need to know about my dad. When he's nervous or he doesn't really want to talk, he cracks his neck. So he called to my brothers and said, Mike and Pat, you look at what these boys did to your sister and you don't come home until you make them pay for what they've done. Damn kids. Look at it, run off! Damn. My brothers came home the next day and reported to my dad that they didn't do anything. They couldn't. The guys were worse off than I was. One had a black eye and a fat lip, and the other had scratch marks and was missing a tooth. Oh. My dad was so proud of me. He was glowing as much as a man can. He turned and he said, you little shit. Damn you. Now that's one of my father's favorite stories from my childhood. Oh, my dad loves stories. He likes to take them, work him around a little bit to what he thinks would be really cool, believe it to be true, and then retell it. Like my sister Amy, she was a dancer for the Kansas City Chiefs. She was the youngest dancer ever for the football team. That wasn't good enough for my dad. My dad said, my goddamn daughter danced on the 50-yard line during Monday Night Football in a dance solo. She wore a red and white unitard and all the other goddamn girls wore black and white. It was the best game ever, Monday Night Football. She mouthed, love you, Dad. Now that was my father's favorite memory of Amy, and it never happened. I can remember my first bus like it was yesterday. I was attending Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas. I was walking through the Sigma Nu fraternity parking lot going to a Friday afternoon function. And from between two Daddy Bob cars, a man approaches me. He has on a black top hat like Abe Lincoln, a long black wool coat, and it's important that it's wool because it's 95 degrees out. He's bright white, hillbilly white, and he has a full mustache and beard. And it's one of those beards you can tell has never once been shaved because the stray hairs go all the way up to his eyebrows. He walked up to me, and I was ready for anything. I'm like, what? He opens his jacket, pulls out a bag of pottage, you want to find some grass? That's when it happened. I grabbed my badge, I flashed it. Well, my badge was my K-State ID and my driver's license. I grabbed the pot, back in the pocket. I said, you've got the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You've got the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you. Do you understand your rights? He started shaking. I'm like, look, buddy, proceed to the door back there. We got a phone call to make. When we got to the door, I opened it. He took 2 steps up and then fell on his back like an upside-down June bug looking up at me. No, man, please. Don't do this to me, man, please, man. I can't take this in my life right now. Take this crap and get out of here. Today's your lucky day, and I don't want to see you on my feet again! You know, we all know I was just a college student, but to that guy, I grew up in Overland Park, Kansas, in a split-level ranch-style brown and cream home. It was pretty nice, and the basement was fully finished, and we had air hockey, pinball, foosball. We had a sliding glass door right here, and everybody loved to spend the night at our house because you could prank people, you could sneak out, and you could get drunk. And the only repercussion that would ever happen is my mother would sometimes fall down and say, "Be quiet, I'm trying to sleep." My parents had their own one phone line on each side of the bed, and all 6 of us kids had our own lines too. My mom's bedroom was located to the side of the house near the garage. And there were 3 rules in my parents' house. You be quiet when you're near my mother's bedroom. You don't go into her bedroom. And God damn it, you don't knock on her bedroom door unless you're dying of leukemia or you got a goddamn bone sticking out somewhere. I'll give you something to cry about. Now this was hard for a little girl because there were times that you need your mother. And when I did, I'd just walk in. And she'd either be asleep or she'd say, "Get out, I'm on the phone!" Let's take a look and see what she sleeps with. Let's see what's in this bed of hers. We've got 2 phones and 2 brushes, some rollers, a half-eaten orange and an orange peel, and there's a fudge smudge on the pillow. Oh, and here's cold cream. The lid's missing. It must be under the cover somewhere. My mother came to visit me 5 years ago in Los Angeles, and I gave her my house rules. I said, "Mom, there's going to be no eating in my bed, no cold creaming in my bed, and as a matter of fact, no anything in my bed." She seemed to be okay with it. Then my father comes home with a huge chocolate cake with extra chocolate frosting. He sets it down, cuts it in half, puts a slab on her plate, and she retreats to my bedroom. And I said, "Mother, you can't eat in there!" And she said, "I know, you brat," and slammed the door. Shit. What's going on? The real reason I was freaking out is I just bought a new white duvet, white sheets, and white pillows. What's going on in there? This is so wrong. And then I went, wait a second, I live here. I opened the door, I knocked, and then I opened the door. There were 2 steps going up to a tall bed. My mother was sitting on the 2nd step, and her face was covered in chocolate, like a mud mask. And I thought, how does a person get chocolate all over their face in 5 minutes or less? Did she fall asleep in a fit of narcolepsy, and when I knocked, she woke up? Or did she get that extra chocolate frosting on her face and think it was her cold cream? In 6th grade, I got the coolest teacher you can get, Tony Mandola. Now, it was the disco era, and Tony Mandola thought he was Tony Manero. He had big feather back, blown back black hair, open shirt, gold chain. He liked me. Not in that sexual way, more just like friends and confidant. He used to have me spin his cologne and give it a yay or nay. He used to ask me, what kind of girl should I date and how should I treat him? But most importantly, he'd keep me in from recess so he could practice his dance moves and he could learn if you were mine. Okay, I can't dance like I used to. When I was 9 years old, I was a mall rat. I spent almost every day after school at the mall, for sure both weekend days. I had a whole routine down. I'd start at Taco Villa. Now, Taco Villa was owned by the same man that owned the roller skating rink, Mr. Marshall. I'd sit in my booth. "What's up, Mr. Marshall?" The usual. He'd bring me 8 nachos and an ice water, and he never once asked me for money. We'd sit and visit. I'd say, "Who's DJing? What special events do you have coming out?" He'd listen to my opinions. He cared because we were good friends. He'd give me a couple dimes. I'd play the jukebox, and then I'd just head down my merry way. I'd start, the next door was Topsy's, and if they had cinnamon popcorn samples out, I'd grab some. Then I'd pass the t-shirt shop that ironed on the decals. I'd say, "What's up?" to the girls. Then I'd pass the organ store, and I thought in the whole mall, these guys have the hardest sell. And I didn't know how to play, so I just go, good job today, guys. Then I go to the Atari store, and I played Pong with whatever manager was on duty for about an hour. Matt, Steve, or Dave. And then I'd end up at my favorite store, Spencer's. Now, Spencer's was the kind of store girls didn't go into, and if they did not tell their mothers. They had nudie puzzles, nudie postcards, Mad Libs. You could get your ears pierced there without your parents' permission. And in the back, they had black lights and black light posters. That's where I'd start. Just go straight back and look at how tan I was and how white my teeth were. And then I'd head to my second aisle, my favorite aisle, the second aisle. I'd go and I'd pick out whatever nudie puzzle I was going to do that day. Sit down. Ouch. Whoosh! This is a tough one. I just start putting it together, and sometimes it'd take me 30 minutes, sometimes it'd take me 2 hours. And people would just pass in front of me and behind, and I'd say, what's up, what's up? And then one day, Karen, the assistant manager, came up, and she's like, Leigh, what are your parents' names? I said, Dick and Janice. And then 5 minutes later, the strangest thing happened. Karen came up to me and said, Leigh, your mom's on the phone. What? You mean my mother knows I'm not home right now? And more importantly, she knows I go to Spencer's when I'm not at home? This was so fucking exciting! I got up and I ran to the phone. I was like, hello? Yeah, sure, Mom, I'll be right there. She told me to come home. I ran down the escalator, through the parking lot to my parents' house. When I got to my mom's bed, she was sleeping. You know, everything in my life revolves around my mother and how my mother's feeling and how it affects her. Like when my father had a heart attack, I went to the intensive care, and I got there, my mother was sitting there bawling, and I just sat down next to her and put my arm around her, and I know it was a bad circumstance, but I was having such a nice moment with my mother. I said, I know, Mom, it's hard, I'm here for you. And then my mother said, why? Why did this happen to me? Now what am I supposed to do? You see, my father was the one that filled her prescriptions that kept her in bed. And he was also the one that made the cheese enchiladas with extra sour cream. He'd just lay a towel on her chest in bed and she'd shovel it in while she watched QVC. My dad was once a really handsome and smart man. He was so smart, as a matter of fact, that he graduated from medical school at the age of 22 when most of us were just graduating from college. One sure way you could get my dad mad was to tell him that Doogie Howser was smarter than him. Dad, Doogie Howser is so much smarter than you. He graduated at 16 and you didn't graduate till you were 22. It's a goddamn TV show, Leigh. That's bullshit. And bullshit if he did graduate at 16. Oh, what the hell? Goddamn ungrateful kids. It's 4th grade, and I'm passing notes with the hottest, sexiest guy in school, Jim Crusoe. As hot and sexy as you can be in the 4th grade. Jim had feathered back, light brown hair. He had piercing blue eyes, and he had yellow teeth that were kind of pointing and crisscrossed. And this one actually stuck out more than the rest. Didn't matter. Because every girl in my school thought Jim Crusoe was a hunk, and he liked me. I went up to him on the playground. I was like, hey, Jim, you like me? He said, yeah. I said, do you want to come over after school and play? He was like, sure. So I took him home. When we got there, my mother was in bed. So I took him to my favorite place, the sewer. And I'm not sure why I called it the sewer, actually, because it was really just a storm drain. It had one of those cement slabs that ran through everyone's backyard, and there was a big circle, and in the circle there were all these rooms you could go in if it wasn't flooding. I took him in a room. We went in there for a second, and we were just talking and stuff, and then he leaned over and French kissed me. And then stuck his hand on my shirt, and he touched the area that would soon be my breast. It lasted just for a second or two, then it was over. We had like nervous chit chat, a nice laugh, and then we smoked a Winston. I can actually remember that I stole those Winstons from Woolworths and Woolco at the mall. I came home and I said, "Hey Mom, I stole these Marlboro Lights and the slapstick from the mall." And she said, "Oh, Leigh, what am I going to do with you?" 1 a.m. Denny's. Bob Banner and I get there, we sit down, we place our order, and I excuse myself to the ladies' room. I walk in there and I pass a table of about 5 or 6 men, and they said hi to me. I said, "Hey," and we're talking for a minute. I could tell they were drunk, but I didn't mind, because so was I. I excused myself and I headed to the ladies' room. I pulled down my pants and I was taking care of business. I heard the door open. Now ladies, you know when you hear the door open, subconsciously you hear footsteps, another stall door open, somebody starts to pee, and there's some weird comfort in that. I didn't hear that. When I looked, there was somebody staring at me through the crack of the door. Now before I freak out, I want to get their description to take him down, right? So I see a mustache and a red tie, and I said, "Get the fuck out of here, you pirate!" He ran out. I got up, I regrouped, I washed my hands, and I just walked out. And I was like, "Oh, hey guys, what's going on? Oh, you're on a bachelor party? Right on." As I'm talking, I'm sizing up the men at the table. There's only one with a mustache. "Oh, that was you in the restroom? Yeah, I saw your mustache." And he said, "I saw your mustache too." And they all started high-fiving him. This motherfucker was going down. Tonight my job was going to be easy, because I had a moon over my hammy breakfast sandwich waiting for me. I called the cops, I told them where it was, I gave them the description of the mock guy, they arrested him. You know, crazy games and things with your friends are fun, but a lady on the toilet, a cop? It's 10th grade in the school lunchroom, and I'm sitting next to my 11th grade crush, Randy Bryson, and he's just staring at me. I can feel it. And I know he's looking at how nice my profile is. So I was kind of proud of my profile back then. When I smile, my nose a lot of times spreads out to here, so I was holding a small cute smirk for him. And that was about the time Randy said, "Hey, look everyone, Leigh has a mustache." I'm so horrified. I couldn't, I just ran home to my mom. I just ran all the way home, and I said, "Mom, wait up!" Randy Bryson just announced to the whole lunch table that I have a mustache. She popped out. She was so excited because she got to take me to her favorite place, Mr. Papa's beauty salon. Now this was the place that permanently tattooed the makeup on her face. When I got there, I sat down and we put on the hot wax and the cloth to rip it off. And my mom didn't know this, and the lady didn't ask, but I was on Accutane, that really strong zit medicine that can make your skin peel and your hair fall out. They ripped it off, and my skin came off, and I went, "Ah!" And she went. That was like one of the few times in my life that my mother like rose to the occasion and was trying to help me. She was trying. You know, my mother snowballed from a beautiful, attractive, I think at one time lovely woman, to a woman in bed who could barely walk with a wig on sideways. I'm going to tell you more about that wig in a minute. Yeah. 5th grade, I'm back at the mall. I'm just cruising around, doing my business, and I was about to pass the Make-A-Wish fountain, and I saw a flyer. And the flyer read, they're holding the Miss Junior Overland Park pageant at the mall. I mean, I could be crowned queen of my kingdom. This was so awesome! I ran home and I got this orange ribbed turtleneck and a brown and orange suspender dress. I put them both on the day out with my cheerleading saddle Oxfords, and I headed back for the big day. When I got there, I looked around, I sized the girls up. There were 30 of them, and I could see through the room the girl that was going to win. Her name was Tina. She had a perfectly curled under Dorothy Hamill, light pink lip gloss, a light blue dress, and a big corsage that her mother had bought her. And when Tina got on that runway, she looked right at the judges with grace and precision. She let her dimples shine. When it was my turn, I got up there. That was all we had to do that day. Oh my God, they're announcing the finalists. There's 8 of them, me, Tina, and a couple other girls. It was so exciting. I ran home and I said, Mother, wake up! Listen, I just got chose to be Miss Junior Overland Park finalist, and it's Friday at the mall, and all the girls had their mothers there and these pretty corsages they bought. Would you come with me to buy a dress? She's moving. She handed me her charge card. So I went back to the mall. Back in the mall in Kansas in '77, you could just charge on your parents' card and they just called in for the okay. They didn't have to because it was Hartsfeld's and they knew me there. Mrs. Jones was working that day, and she was an older gal. She had nice style. I trusted her. She helped me pick out 5 dresses. And the one we chose it had a built-in corsage like the other girls had, and a high collar, and when I twirled, my skirt filled with air. You guys, I felt like a princess in this dress. Could you get this for me? Velcro on the top and in the bottom. Thanks. I bought pink tights and little blue patent leather shoes with a strap. And the day of, I went home and I borrowed my sister Amy's curling iron and I put my Dorothy Hamill under it just right. And in a drawer, I found this green lipstick. And it said it turned your lips their natural intended lipstick color. It was hot pink and lasted 2 weeks. I got there the day of. I got on the runway and I walked with grace and precision, and I was confident. And it wasn't like most beauty pageants where they tell you before they're going to ask you a question. They just stopped me and said, Leigh, what would you like to be when you grow up? Oh, shit. Should I say I want to be like one of my role models, lay in bed all day and eat fudge? That's not going to win me the crown. I'd like to be a doctor and help people. My father's a doctor. I'd like to be a surgeon. I'd like to be a doctor like my father. I won. I was crowned Miss Junior Overland. You know, I wasn't lying that day when I answered that question. I did want to be a doctor. My father was a doctor, and on Saturdays, he used to take me on rounds with him. We'd go see all of his patients, and on school nights, if it wasn't too late, he'd take me to the hospital emergency room, and I got to glove up and pass him the 601 nylon as he stitched people up. Now, I wondered what my mother wanted to be when she grew up. I knew it wasn't a mother, and I was thinking maybe it was a stage actress, because I know she once played Blanche in A Streetcar Named Desire. Or maybe it was a doctor, because she was 20 hours away from getting her PhD in psychology. 20 hours. 1 a.m. I'm walking my dog Thor. He's an 8-pound white lap dog Maltese. I'm walking him, and at the end of the block, I see a large man with a bald head, and I haven't seen him before. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And I have to tell you that sometimes my whole cop thing goes into overdrive, and I get a little overexcited, and I thought, what if this man grabs me, takes me between these 2 buildings, and does God knows what with me? Should I run across the street? No, that would yell, look at me, I'm scared! And when I looked up, he was right in front of me. I scared him away with my karate moves. It worked. He passed without incident. Now, my neighbor called me about an hour later and said, Leigh, I was out on my balcony smoking a cigarette, and I saw you twitching on the sidewalk. I went, hey, you were okay. 'Cause I was 20 years old. 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 20
Everybody was coming for fighting. Ha! Those kids were fast as lightning. Ha! And the fight was a little bit frightening. Ha! But it was with expert timing.
In 8th grade, I was the first underclassmen to get my drill team dance Kung Fu Fighting performed at a basketball game. Kim and I are driving down the street, and I got a gut feeling we're being followed. Sure enough, my gut was right. Kim pulled in a driveway, a car pulled up behind us, a man got out, took out his penis, and started jerking off.
Oh.
Kim completely freaks out. I push her out of the driver's seat. I get behind the guy. I get behind him to get down his license plate number. And look, he jumps in his car, cock's still out, and floors it up a cul-de-sac. I get to the bottom of the cul-de-sac, and I'm holding my stance, and so is he. We're both revving our engines. And then like a game of chicken, he comes flooring it out, and he goes around me, and I get his last 2 digits. I had a phone call to make. I called the cops, I told them where I lived, I gave them the description, I gave them the license plate number, they came to my house and took my statement. A week later, a lady cop called me. She said, would you like to press charges? Yeah. Do you know what this entails? You're going to have to stand up in the court of law, point him out, and tell in front of everyone what happened. Are you up for that? I don't think she knew who she was talking to. Yeah, I'm up for that. But as a matter of fact, ma'am, I'm going to ask the judge if he can stand up and reenact what happened. If I can see him the same way he was last face he made. Oh! Hello? A week later, I found out that man pled guilty to a lewd act and indecent exposure. He was married with 3 kids. Perfect! I know that sounds harsh, but when you've seen what I have, you get cold. Last time I saw my mother was about 5 months ago. I was in Kansas City for a few days, and I was passing the hospital she was in. She had just had knee replacement surgery, and I thought, you know, I'm just going to keep trying my whole life to do my part and to be a good daughter and to do what I can to make it right. And I walked into her hospital room and I looked at her. Remember that wig I told you about earlier, the sideways one? She had it on. The part was going down the side of her head. And she had gauze wrapped around her head, and I thought, is that a Civil War soldier? You see, my mother would rather put on a wig than wash her hair, and she forgot her bobby pin, so she borrowed gauze from the nurse. Took a deep breath and said, "Hey, Mom, nice wig." And she said, "Oh, this old thing? Oh, Next to my mother's bed was a box of wet wipes. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to freshen up a little bit. I've been driving for a while. I have to go get on a plane. So I opened the box, and they were all disheveled. And I figured there's little hospital tray tables. Somebody knocked it off and set it back up. So I took 3 out. And as my mother watched me, I just wiped my face and my mouth and my hands and smiled at my mom and my face and my mouth. And I threw them away. And then my mother tells me a story. "Oh, Leigh, they're so rough in here, these nurses. Last night when I had to go pee at 3 in the morning, I thought, I'm not buzzing these mean old ladies. So you want to know what I did?" Mind you, there's a porta potty touching her bed. "I took these wet wipes, I dumped them out, I peed inside of it, I dumped it in the porta potty, I put them back with the wet wipe, nobody even knew." Aren't I clever? You mean to tell me I just bathed in my mother's urine? I couldn't decide to give into my body and vomit. Strangle her nasty ass and just go scrub up. I went to the bathroom and I washed my hands and I washed my face and I washed my hands and then my face and my hands. "Mom, I hope you feel better." And then I just walked out. I just walked. Hidden on a lonely hillside, underneath the western sky, proudly stands the school we honor, triumphs ever rise. In 6th grade, I was voted the first girl student body president ever in John Deemer's 28-year history. Hail to thee, our dear John Deemer, hail to thee, we proudly sing. Hail to thee, our dear John Deemer, may our triumphs ever ring. Leigh, where's your mother? Leigh, why does your mother ever come out of her bedroom? Leigh, why are your clothes dirty? Leigh, why isn't your uniform made on time? Leigh, why does your mother ever come to your cheerleading games? Leigh, does your mom even know you play volleyball? Leigh, what the hell is wrong with your mother? Leigh, do you even have a mother? Growing up, my role model for mother was inadequate. And my father liked me best when I was acting tough or was fighting. I wasn't really sure who I was growing up. And I wondered if I'd ever be able to be in a situation that was out of order without having to pretend I was a cop. If I would ever meet a man that I could be myself with once I found out who that was. And if I met him, would I marry him? And if I married him, would I have children? And if I have children, would I be a good mother? The gods are speaking. I met my husband on an airplane 4 years ago. And from the moment I started talking to him, I knew it was my man. I was so excited. I felt so blessed by God. I couldn't even believe it was happening. It took him a little bit longer. 9 months later, he proposed to me. May 18th, 1999, Charles Patrick Koechner was born. He is my unbelievable, precious, sweet little baby boy. When I get down to look at him and I talk to him, and I look into his sweet eyes and how beautiful they are, and how much I'm overwhelmed with love, I think, what was my mother thinking when she wouldn't hug me, brush my hair, and know what grade I was in? I vowed to myself when I was pregnant that a day wouldn't go by that my son didn't know how much I loved him, how much I cared for him, and how freaking important he was to me. Charlie will always have a lap to sit on, and he will always have a shoulder to cry on, and he will always have strong arms to hold them and to protect them. And some of you in this audience tonight might be protected by me as well in the future. You're going through something scary, you're not sure what to do. And those of you in the audience who are straddling the line of unlawfulness, just know that I know.
Just